So, I
Um,
mean, obviously, thanks for doing this. I just like the idea is I'm going to talk to like a few people, see how they're actually using Radium, and sort of like pick their brains a little bit. Because obviously, like I used to be a sound editor, but it's been I don't know 13 years since I actually did any editing. So
wow.
I've just been developing since then. So
Yeah.
I'm the last person that should be showing how things actually work. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
curious to get into the minds of actual users.
All right. Well, this is what I've been doing. I just got off of this Notre Dame thing, as I told you, and so it's been a lot of fire and wood and chaos and stuff. And I learned a lot about your sampler as I was doing it. And I built a lot of these. I built a lot of presets, and I think maybe that's the best place to start. Um, I just like run through a couple and take them apart. Um,
Absolutely, that'd be
the
great.
first the first thing I built was this thing called Fire Builder because I really needed some. I needed some fire, and they wanted it to sound. It was the beast, but maybe not literally the beast. Uh, so I started off putting in a bunch of whooshes, which are these guys, and that just gives it some character. Um, and I don't know if those are loud enough for you to hear. Um, and those are radium regions, and I took a bunch of whooshes and I did this thing.
Oh, the combine to composite the
Yeah,
files together. Yeah, it's pretty
yeah.
useful.
That is a very useful feature. Um, and so I combined those whooshes together and made radium regions out of them. And then the next thing I needed some burning, and so I've got some low burning here.
With a lot of bass enhancer. Sounds great.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Effects wise, EQ, yeah, not using it so much. High low pass, I've got all of the low pass. I got all low pass rolled in. The bass enhancer I really love on this thing, by the way.
Awesome.
Uh, you don't need a lot of it,
No,
but
I've actually gotten some comments from people that say, you know what, you should dial down the
yeah,
default because a
yeah,
little goes a long way.
yeah. And then a little saturator just to muck it up. And then that's the whole thing together. Here's some torch fire for crackle. And one of the things I was going to do is some of these things, because I built them early on, they were before I was really using some of the randomized functions. So
Hmm.
I'm going to tweak this on the fly,
Oh, for
which is,
sure.
which is that I love random start, random attack, and random delay. And as a matter of fact, I built a template that I'm using now whenever I start up making a sound that has those three things in the modulation section already, but they're turned off.
That's a
Uh,
good tip. I know someone else that's done the same thing.
yeah, I figure I know I'm going to use it at some point, and why not just have it there already? So, and I usually put them right in the middle, just in case it's crazy. Um, I don't know if the random pan is going to do too much. As we talked about, you and I, that stereo sounds, the panning doesn't work
Yeah,
quite
necessarily
as.
work as well. Yeah,
But this way, you can get a little bit more variation into it, and it doesn't give you that normal. Like we used to use back in the '90s, we used to use that Akai sampler, and it
the
was great.
the
But
S2000 or the S1000.
S1000, yeah,
Yeah, that
right.
was big with the hip hop guys as well. I come from
It,
music production.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a workhorse.
Oh yeah,
Um, but doing that work was so much more of a pain than doing this. And you'd always end up, if you were making sounds with the sampler, it would always end up you'd have that same. Whenever you hit a key, you'd have that same sound up front. It would always be that it would be a dead giveaway that they're
there
using
was
a
a
sample.
sample for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the
Um,
the random attack that was a really good feature request.
So yeah, the random attack, amazing feature, and allows you to really get some expression out of it. And then let's see what else is in this. Okay, I got a lot of stuff then. This is some fireworks sounds just to give it some fizz on top. And then and then I put a little electricity in. Just some clicks to give it some. So then you put that all together. Oh, and another thing that's really nice is and I know we got back and forth about this. Some people just like to use that key. I have an 88 key weighted keyboard left over from my music days, and it is an amazing feeling of power to be able to just do this thing. The touch sensitivity is great. And by the way, I know you have, and where is it up here? Global velocity curve.
Mm-hmm.
That I haven't even played around with this.
You've got a nice looking keyboard. You don't have to. It sounds like your velocity sensitivity is like right on.
Yeah,
I've got a nice M audio. It's 66 keys, I think, and that's really good. But it takes up most of my desk. For most things, I just an octave and a half is fine. So I have a little Novation Launch Key Mini here, and the velocity sensitive on that thing is like garbage. It's like it's either on or off. So that's sort of why I built those kind of curves. But I mean, that's a good point that you mentioned, is that having a full width keyboard it definitely gets the expressiveness out, right? Because you can play it so many octaves apart.
Yeah, and I find that a lot of these sounds, it develops a totally different character. Like if I play up here, I can be doing portraits, and then electricity sounds. And so, and with these sort of white noisy sounds like fire and wind and stuff, you could just go all over the place, and it's really, and plus, the low and the high of it, you can really.
So let me ask you this question here. So
go for it.
When you're thinking about what kind of sounds you're going to throw into Radium, do you have like an idea? Is it like, do you find that you're doing like a lot of percussive sounds? Is it sounds that kind of come and go, like shortish kind of sounds? Do you ever do like a droney kind of sound? Is there any sort of pattern, I suppose, is the question I'm trying to get at.
It's that's the thing about creating this stuff, is I'm kind of looking at each problem and breaking it down. Like, okay, I want to make what's my best wood thing. I've got a few wood things. I've got some great creaking stuff, but my best one is this thing called, or maybe it's not, but I like the name of it. It's called Structural Troubles. And what it is it's when the spire of the cathedral was falling, you could hear it just like cracking and stuff. And so I started off. I could tell how I built these by which slot everything is in. So I started off with, I want some wood crashing, like this, and then let's do some branches. By the way, you can see all the radium regions in there. And sometimes what I do just to randomize it more is I just look at the sound, a sound like these branches breaking, which has a lot of different elements to it. I just break it up naturally. I put some randomization in. I just go down the line and just select.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so you're not really using the auto-identify so much as you're just kind of going through and going, a little piece of this, a little piece of that. And I suppose with the fade, being able to apply the fade, you don't have to worry about clicking or marking at a zero crossover point or anything like that.
Let's do that right now. And then definitely some wood stress. Oh, here's a question for you. This is obviously a quad sound.
Mm-hmm.
Does Radium mix that down? It's already in my show, so I guess
It's
whatever.
it's going to just use the left and right channels, the first two channels.
Uh-huh.
But I am storing everything inside the patches and all that kind of stuff. In the
So when it
eventuality that, if I open this up to be surround, that it will be ready. It just means
lovely,
like
yeah.
all those effects that I've programmed, I've got to just make them agnostic when it comes to
Yeah.
channel counts, which it's not a big deal. But remember when I started this thing, it was supposed to be very, very simple. The actual proposition on the thing, like when I was writing it, was like, oh, we just need to be able to take, I think it was at the time, four sounds and just layer them, like simple pitch control, ADSR envelope, and that's it. And then, as you
See
can
what
see,
you've done?
yeah, look what's created. And the problem is people keep coming back with more and more great suggestions. And so this thing is really taking on a life of its own. It's almost like Sound Miner is like my part-time job now, and Radium is my full-time. I shouldn't really say that, but you know what I'm saying?
No,
It's
no,
it's
I do though. I do though, and it's great that it's been able. It's like it's the most intuitive thing that I've played with on this level. So it's really worth doing the tweaking that you're doing. I think
fantastic.
it's amazing. So this is like some deeper. I guess I like the way that works, just as it is.
Hmm.
Um, and then this is. Oh, sorry, I just woke up. I literally just woke up.
Of course.
This is like some hard sounds to give it some depth, and then some more present wood creaking. Yeah, you can see the power of being able to make those regions right away in something like this.
And I can see all of the notes as well that you're playing. Looks like you're using all 10 digits.
Yeah, I'm using all 10 digits. And it just follows. One of the other things I do in my template is I knock the hold and the release up all the way, because I just find that gives them, like, if I let go of a note and it just stops, it just doesn't seem like it's working as well. I know it can work for some situations, and perhaps if I'm in like a cartoon sound design situation or something like that, I might rethink that. For this thing, it was much better to have things that would continue.
Yeah, that's a
So
really good tip, especially when you're talking about you've identified those radium regions, so that the release point isn't going to go
yeah,
past those regions, so you don't have to worry about it like triggering yet another one.
exactly, exactly. So when you
Can I?
put this on, oh, go ahead.
That's what I was going to ask. Can I hear what
Yeah.
it all sounds like together?
The I found
Brilliant.
the danger with doing this in sound design is that you tend to make sounds that might be too busy, or I worry about that. I'm of like six minds of it. In one sense, like this is it sounds to me it sounds great, but then I put it in the show and it's like, wow, I hear that all the time now. So I've started doing like little bursts, like I'll just do that and then that, and just let it decay.
I suppose
Um,
it also gives you the opportunity to build layers that way as well, when it's a little more subtle, right? So instead of just
yeah,
like the stereo pair going, there's the effect. It's glorious. It's got all of these full frequency sounds. It allows you to tone it down a little bit.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But then again, the randomization factor, sort of play these things in like this and have it go. I've come up with sounds of different varieties, and I think it really is going to depend. Hang on one second. It really is going to depend on your mixer, or if you're mixing, or how many layers you are going to build for it. I think about how much time though it would take for me to build something like this in an edit, in a time
That's
and
it. Yeah. And that's kind of like I've seen like the younger generation, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but
You kids.
yeah, like you and I probably came up, 4 channels of Pro Tools, and
Yep.
so we were using samplers to try and get as much polyphony as possible into the edit, knowing that you could only stack, maybe 8 tracks of stereo effects together. But nowadays, with these infinite track counts, sometimes when something like Reaper, you see so many people, especially on like YouTube videos, I see them just stack sound after sound after sound after sound after sound, and it goes to mix that way. And I
Yeah.
think as a mixer, how is that person going to get through all of these units of sound? There's like absolutely no way. So
Yeah.
I
They're
think
not. Yeah.
combining is definitely the way to go. But that is a question for you. It's like, okay, so you've done a recording, you've got some subtle movements, you've got some big movements. They're all inside one file. How do you use that now inside your actual Pro Tools edit session? Do you find
Yeah.
yourself layering 3, 4 of those elements from that record, or is it just picking 1 or 2 and then saving the others for alts in case it comes up during playback?
Yeah, for me, I found myself building patches, and maybe this is maybe debris is a good place to start with this. I'd have light debris, which is this. Not for nothing, I've always looked for this sound in my entire life. And now I have it. And not only do I have it, but it's like I can tailor it. Like you can hear what the higher lower is really good on this. Like this is like up near the top of the keyboard. It's dust.
Yep.
And down near the bottom it's rocks. And there's nothing different about. I've done no key mapping. It's just which I guess may be a testament to either the sounds or 96K or your pitch stuff is really good or something in between. And this isn't a lot of sounds. This is like 3 different sounds. And it's mostly this Richard King sound. Can I plug Pro Sound Effects? I love them.
Oh, sure.
It's mostly this Richard King debris sound. You can hear that's like 90% of it. And then I've got some more papery sounds here, and then some matrix. This fills in the background. So all together.
I love it.
Then you need to go like I have one that's brick debris. This has more brick sounds. I do want to tweak this one. There are some little pieces of this that I didn't like. You can see I've got a Hanna-Barbera sound in here. What is that Hanna-Barbera sound? Yeah, it's bricks.
Yep. It's got that Hanna-Barbera sound, that low mid-range.
Yeah, but you can't knock it.
It works.
It works. And then so I build something like that with some debris, and then I put another layer of this big wood debris. They actually asked for this separately, and so I ended up building it. Look, I'm using the release trigger.
Oh, yeah.
And that's for the roll-off part of it. And then I've got some other. And you can just go all over the keyboard, and it allows you a lot of flexibility. I did use this. There's a Houses and Barns library from a sound effect that's got some really good, and I think some of these are from it. No, that's not from it. That's Hollywood Edge. Oh, maybe it's not in here. I did use that in some places. Oh, I know what I used it for. When they were in the bell tower, the firefighters go up these wood steps,
Mm-hmm.
and so I built some steps. I don't know why I'm using flanging in there. That must have been, there's something that's flanging. Yeah. Whatever, anyway, that ended up being kind of a nice sound. It's got that little squeak in it.
I see you're using quite a lot of the slots. Do you find that a limitation having 5? Could you use more?
Yeah, I thought you mentioned to Graham that you could make a lot. I was like, really?
Yeah, there really is no limit. I just thought, because, when people were proposing this idea to me, that a lot of people were mentioning the synclav, because that was sort of like the precipice
Yeah.
of sound editing. And they were like, oh, 4 partials or 4 slots. That's all we need. And so I was like, well, it's got to be better than the synclav. I'll give you 5. But
Yeah.
maybe it should be
That's-
32.
I mean, there's joy and danger in that. The joy is I like to build sounds from like little sounds and have a lot of little sounds that make up one big deep thing. And for that, like, I might take some. I would take 10. I mean, I mean, is there a way that you can make it so you can add a slot if you need it?
Yeah, that's probably the way I'm going to do it, because people have asked for ways to duplicate slots as well. Just because from a sound design point of view, you take one sound and then you mod it slightly. So if you just want to thicken something up, you can detune it slightly, and have
Right.
have it play so you got the original sound. And if I start getting into more of the surround type things, you can take that one slot, that's your center channel. The other slot can be your left and right, and then you can really make things nice and wide.
People are going to go nuts. They're going to have 100 slots, and it's going to be, and then yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah. I'm
It's
also
gonna,
trying to push the fact, like, once I ever finish it, is the actual plugin version. You can have multiple instances of this thing, right?
yes,
So you'd be like, okay, well, here is just your left right patch, and here's your left surround right surround patch, and you can play them both at
yeah,
the same time. So do all those kind of things.
I love that. Um, Maybe I should show you a wind. Like for when they're up on top. So I got a little buffeting in there, I've got a little badger scream. Is he really in there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's anyway.
And I see you're using the random pan a lot. That's good.
Oh yeah, I love that thing. I love
It's
that.
not really coming through onto the zoom sounds pretty good. I'm actually surprised with it, but yeah, the stereo-ness is lost. I'm afraid. But I can
Yeah.
imagine it would be quite brilliant. I should have gotten you to record your side, and then you could have sent it to me, and
Oh,
I could have
oh yeah.
sync it up
Well,
next time.
yeah. Stairway Thoughts. I wanted to find this one sound. There was a I know it's in here somewhere. This is what, by the way, this is what having a. I see you have the filter up here,
Hmm.
but it just says show all items.
Yeah, that would
So
be
I,
if you were to assign. So the tag assign on the right hand side. If you
I
assigned it to
see.
one of the sound, it would allow you to view by that. Yeah, people have, especially now it's been out for however long it's been out
Yeah,
for. People are really starting to build up a lot of patches. So they're like, yeah, I need a search in there. I need a way
yeah.
to
I love
uh,
it.
preview.
I love a search, or even if I just click on this name for it to sort them alphabetically, would be.
Yeah, and date as well. People
Yeah,
want. So
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want to get crazy, you could make nested folders like a playlist. Because I'll tell you, I have my Notre Dame playlist, which I've
mhm.
been putting things in. But
It should work
I wouldn't
as
mind.
nested. So if you were
Yeah.
to move those files around inside the Finder,
Uh huh.
it would show them nested.
I see. Okay. So if I put a folder, if I put a folder and search that, it'll give me a folder up here.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
A
That's
little
good to
tip
know.
for you there.
I know what I'll be doing after this.
Yeah. Just
Um,
organizing everything.
yeah, seriously. Well, right now I only have one kind of. Well, that's not true necessarily. Okay. Anyway, One last sound. This paper sound that I started off with a detuned match strike. And then a bunch of, this is for these graphics that they made where it sort of looks like watercolor and the paper's like burning off. Another have some white noisy effects. You can definitely, I can hear in my headphones the random pan working on that. I definitely have something going on there. In one of these. Oh, the shuffler. Yeah, I like the shuffler. The shuffler's fun for giving it a little bit of.
Yeah, I can see on your meters, but unfortunately, I'm gonna have to take your word for it.
Okay, it's happening. Trust me. Let me see if there was anything else on. Oh, the naming. I love the naming. I put it on a hotkey, which is Control N, and that brings up that thing. Mm-hmm. That's been great. That's been great, and I've got a head of steam here. Once you can click on these and bring them back. I did start experimenting with using the VST rack in this. And I know the way you have it set up, it works on the output, right? Not on the input. Yeah. So and I know everybody under the sun has been saying, why can't you get the VSTs in here? I don't know why you can't. I'm sure it's maybe a matter of time, or maybe it's harder to do.
It's a time thing. It's a time thing. I have in my beta builds, I have the ability to do it.
Man, one day it's going to be. That's going to be a crazy thing when you do it.
I joke that it's the one good thing about this COVID virus is there goes my summer. Usually in the summer I do a lot of cycling and I'm outside a lot. Now it's like, well, I guess I'll just work through summer at this rate.
Yeah. Well, you'll have a lot to show for it at the end.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I've become a fan of these GRM plugins, and I started just playing around with this. The output goes through. I don't know if it's too subtle to hear what's going on.
Oh no, I can totally hear. Yeah, it's a great way to create additional variety, and especially things with like the GRM Doppler as well. Yeah. You could be playing things with one hand, moving it with the other. You can even assign a MIDI controller, like a knob, to control one of the plugins. So you could be moving things around as well.
It's killer, and it ends up in the sound file here, which is just the way I would like it. And then I just, I've got a head of steam going on now, so I'm just going to import these into my database. You don't have the option to import them into a database that's not open, do you?
No, it would have to be the current one.
Okay, yeah. And the one
what a lot of people do is they set up a watch folder. So So if you know your transfers are going to a specific place, for that database, you just assign it to do a watch folder, and then you record all your material. As soon as you swap to that database, it will scan in the background, and then you'll be off and running.
Yeah. The other thing that I ran across, which I wonder if it's a possibility, and I'm sorry to ask you for a bunch of features now. We're doing this, but in the naming thing, let's go back here. I tried to do this with the
Oh yes, it doesn't do the field build. I could make it so that it did that.
Yeah, because I spent the 3 months from like Thanksgiving to December. As soon as I bought V5, actually, I spent like rebuilding my entire sound effects library. And I could do a whole nother thing on workflows. I'll
Let's
tell you that.
definitely do that. That I would love
Um,
to do that.
I've got a lot of keyboard maestro stuff that's triggering workflows, and it was kind of like 7 different ways of doing things. But and I worked through. I don't have. It's funny. I think I have like 300,000 sounds or so. Um, in my library, and I was talking to David Forshee, who's a sound designer here in New York, and he's like, "Yeah, my library's a mess, and I have like over 1 million sounds," and I'm like, "Oh God, I can't even,
I couldn't imagine. No,
I can't comprehend
at some point
going."
it's overload.
Yeah, it is overload. Although I will say that having this, I'm probably going to build up a lot more sounds, just making them out of what I've got.
Hmm.
Uh, that sounds like a good pandemic endeavor. Uh,
Definitely.
but yeah, being able to do, I love the way you did this, where you can add the metadata fields that you want to address. And then, yeah, I never show, because I now have everything in descriptions and categories and subcategories, I never show my file names in here. So every time I import these things
I
in,
see. Yeah, that's why you
the,
want to have the file name. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. So if I make the file name the description, at least that gets me like 90% there. Um, and then yeah, the way I use this is I set it up to name whatever I'm working on at the time, um, and then and then I just go for it. And you can see I've got like a paper ignite, and then I changed it to GRM, or like I got a bunch of big wood debris performance. Um, and I set up a transfer path to a Notre Dame folder in a Radium folder that's in my personal sound effects folder, so that
Gotcha.
as I
Yeah.
create sounds, it just goes right to where I would want to keep it anyway. Um, one thing I do, I guess it's not a big deal, but I keep those patches in a Dropbox folder,
Hmm.
uh, so that when I go on my laptop and bring up Radium, I still have all the same patches that I built, or I can build patches on my laptop and then bring up Radium here, and I still have. When I brought up the Pro Tools plugin, like to see if there was something with that, and tried to bring up one of those patches, it did not come up.
Right. Yeah, the recall stuff wasn't working so well with the
Yeah,
plugin. Yeah,
yeah, I'm
that's
sure.
stuff I gotta fix.
But now that you're telling me that it's not ready for prime time, I'm like, oh yeah, well then I don't even need to mention any of that stuff. Um, there was one other thing that I was thinking of, that was along those same lines. I can't think of it now. I'm sure I'll mention it in
Sure.
the forum or something
Do
if I can.
you ever recall the Radium patches? Like once you've, I see you've got the little Radium icon down at the bottom. So this was done in Radium. Do you ever
Yeah,
recall it afterwards and go, maybe I'll make another variation based on what it is that I'm hearing today?
yeah. When I got notes back, and they wanted those wood and debris sounds, I'd bring up that patch in Radium, and then and tweak it a little bit and do another performance of it that was more in keeping with their notes. Um, uh, I found too that I would looking at a shot, I'd say, oh, this shot is a lot like that shot, but this is different and that's different. So I'd start with that patch, and then I'd tailor it a little bit. Because I use Edward to do Foley's when things are cheap,
Hmm.
and it's the same kind of thing. Is that I keep all my Foley performances just in case I want to tweak them. Because of course once you do it, and then you're like, oh, I want to try a different shoe on that, you could just change it in Edward and then
Right.
re-record it. The other thing that I'm looking forward to when you have the Pro Tools version ready is that I do a lot of half speed recording, where
Hmm.
I'll do my performance against a half speed record, and then I've got all the MIDI, and then I'll play it at full speed and record it for real.
Hmm.
Uh,
That's a definite trick. Not many people know that trick. Again, it's the younger generation, so that's good to point out. It's just a way for you to play everything in sync because you've got twice as many frames to land it.
Exactly.
But the pitch is going to be exactly the same because it's just MIDI information. Well, fantastic, John. This has been great, very educational. I've enjoyed listening to your sounds, definitely. We'll do this again with something else.
Okay, sounds good.